There is a prevailing assumption about private schools. People look at the sprawling quads, the pristine athletic fields, and the centuries-old brick, and they assume these are elite, non-profit charities designed to lose money. It feels like a rich man's hobby, completely insulated from the brutal realities of American commerce. That assumption is dead wrong. In the United States alone, roughly 1/3 of all private schools operate strictly for profit. Behind the facade of educational philanthropy, these are carefully engineered corporate machines designed to generate massive, reliable cash flow for their owners. But stepping behind those gates reveals a deeply counterintuitive puzzle. To understand this hidden world, you have to uncover how much it really costs to buy your way in, where the money is actually extracted from, and the single, silent risk lurking in the background that almost nobody sees until it's too late. Buying a private school isn't like buying a house. It's closer to acquiring a mid-sized hotel, minus the brand recognition. If you want to build a 400-student K-8 facility from scratch in a standard American suburb, you aren't just paying for bricks. You are buying land. And in a decent zip code, a parcel large enough for athletic fields and parking will immediately strip $2 to $4 million from your bank account before a single shovel hits the dirt. Then comes the structure itself. A build-out that meets modern educational codes, including specialized HVAC systems for indoor air quality, commercial kitchens, and strict ADA compliance, runs between $250 and $400 per square foot. For a 60,000 square foot building, the construction alone easily eclipses $15 million. That is a staggering sum of money to spend before a single desk, chair, or textbook is moved inside. But a building doesn't make a school. Filling it requires another $500,000 to $1 million in specialized equipment, from commercial-grade playground surfaces to fully outfitted chemistry labs. Then comes the bureaucratic maze. Securing a state license to operate as an educational institution isn't a simple feat. It requires lawyers, architects, and fire safety clearances. This process can quietly bleed $250,000 out of your pocket, and more critically, up to 2 years of your life, before you are legally allowed to accept a single student. Yet the most dangerous number in this entire equation isn't the $20 million you just spent on the physical plant. It is the money you must keep in reserve. Banks won't hand you a blank check. You typically need to put down 30 to 40% in pure equity, financing the rest at commercial real estate rates. But on day one, your tuition revenue is exactly zero. To survive the first year while waiting for enrollment to stabilize, you need working capital. You must have enough cash sitting in an account to pay a full roster of teachers, administrators, and utility bills for 6 to 12 months with almost no income. For a mid-sized school, that means locking another $1 to $2 million in a vault, just praying families actually show up to fill the seats. Walk through the front doors at 6 in the morning, and you quickly realize this place doesn't run on lesson plans. It runs on logistics. Before the first bell rings, the floors are polished, the HVAC systems are already humming at a precise 68 degrees, and the administrative staff is acting less like educators and more like crisis managers at a high-end boutique hotel. The most critical room in the entire building isn't the science lab or the library. It is the front desk. This is the nerve center of a high-stakes subscription business. Every parent who calls with a complaint about a lost jacket, a perceived slight on the playground, or a question about afternoon carpool logistics is essentially a subscriber threatening to cancel their contract. In this world, retention isn't primarily about academic excellence. It is about the meticulous, invisible management of parental anxiety. Out in the halls, you can physically see the limits of the enterprise. A private school is a brutal, unforgiving exercise in capacity utilization. An empty desk is a decaying asset. If a classroom is built for 24 students but only 18 are enrolled, the school still has to pay the full salary of the teacher, the electricity to light the room, and the grounds crew to maintain the adjoining hallway. The entire financial model begins to suffocate if those final 6 seats remain vacant. This is the hidden math that owners obsess over when the doors close. The marginal cost of adding that 19th student is practically zero. You aren't hiring another teacher. You aren't building an extension. You are simply handing them a $20 workbook and a spot in the lunch line. But the revenue they bring in, often $15,000 to $25,000 a year, drops almost entirely to the bottom line. So the daily operation becomes a relentless, microscopic chase to fill those last few seats while keeping the subscribers you already have completely pacified. Every interaction, every progress report, every minor disciplinary incident is ultimately filtered through one singular, unspoken question that dictates the survival of the school. It is easy to look at the sticker price of tuition and assume that is where the fortune is made. $25,000 a year, multiplied by 400 students, paints a dazzling picture of $10 million in gross revenue. But that number is a mirage. Tuition is not the profit. Tuition is the raw material you use to keep the lights on, and in a competitive market, you are constantly terrified that the school across town will undercut your price by $1,000. In a standard operation, roughly 80 to 85 cents of every tuition dollar is instantly devoured by the fixed costs we just explored. You are essentially passing the bulk of that money directly through to the teachers and the bank. If you try to raise tuition to force a higher margin, your subscriber base revolts, and those empty desks start multiplying. The tuition covers the rent. It rarely generates the real wealth. So where does the money actually come from? The answer reveals itself the second the final bell rings. For the average working parent, a 3 o'clock dismissal is a logistical nightmare. They are trapped at their desks until 5. This creates a highly irrational, incredibly desperate consumer behavior that private school owners exploit every single day. After-school care is the business. The school doesn't need to hire a new teacher, build a new wing, or turn on the HVAC for a new zone. They simply pay a single minimum wage aide to watch 20 kids in an existing classroom. Parents gladly hand over $400 to $600 a month for this service. That revenue is almost entirely unburdened by fixed costs. It flows straight into the owner's pocket. But the ultimate hidden revenue stream is even more lucrative. For 3 months a year, the school sits completely empty, yet the mortgage and maintenance bills never stop. To solve this, owners launch proprietary summer camps. By repackaging their own facility and hiring seasonal college students, they charge premium weekly rates, effectively double-dipping on an asset they already own. The tuition pays for the school, but the aftercare and the summer camps are what actually buy the owner's vacation home. Payroll is the beast that eats first, and it is far hungrier than most people realize. If you assume the bulk of the salary budget goes directly to the teachers in the classrooms, you are operating on outdated logic. In the modern for-profit education model, administrative overhead has quietly become the primary financial drain. You aren't just paying a principal, you are paying a director of admissions whose sole job is to hunt for those marginal students, a marketing team to project an illusion of exclusivity, and a fleet of customer service staff to manage parental complaints. In many of these institutions, administrative salaries now outpace the actual teaching staff, slowly mutating the educational mission into a corporate bureaucracy. Then there is the heavy, suffocating cost of the money itself. Remember that $15 million you borrowed to build the facility? At current commercial interest rates, the debt service alone can easily exceed $1 million a year. You are paying the bank roughly $3,000 every single day just for the privilege of keeping the doors open. And if you didn't build from scratch, but instead bought into a franchise model or a managed network, you will bleed another 5 to 8% of your gross revenue right off the top in royalties and fees, paying a distant corporate overlord for a brand name and a curriculum you could have bought for pennies on the dollar. But the most insidious expenses are the ones tied to the physical plant, because they never sleep. Heating and cooling a massive building with high ceilings and poor insulation is a mathematical nightmare. Environmental regulations add a hidden layer of friction, forcing owners to continually upgrade HVAC systems, remediate aging asbestos, and manage strict stormwater codes. The physical campus is in a constant state of decay. The roof inevitably leaks. The central boiler inevitably fails in the middle of January. Maintenance on a sprawling property is a relentless, creeping erosion of your cash reserves that you absolutely cannot ignore without risking your state license. Finally, there is the invisible, crippling tax of liability. When your entire customer base consists of other people's children, your insurance premiums are astronomical. A single broken arm on the playground or a poorly handled bullying incident can trigger a lawsuit that threatens the solvency of the entire enterprise. Add in the daily, mindless bleed of inventory, textbooks that become obsolete every 5 years, iPads that get shattered by the dozens, and the sheer volume of food wasted in a commercial kitchen, and the tragic reality of the math becomes unavoidably clear. By the time every single one of these expenses is extracted, that $10 million in gross tuition revenue has been meticulously, ruthlessly ground down to a profit margin that is shockingly thin. Every calculated risk we've discussed, the debt, the payroll, the relentless pursuit of aftercare revenue, operates under one fundamental assumption. The assumption that there will always be an endless, reliable pipeline of new customers walking through the front doors. But the single greatest threat to this business model has absolutely nothing to do with competing schools, bad teachers, or angry parents. It is a slow-moving, invisible demographic tsunami that owners are terrified to even acknowledge. In 2022, the United States recorded the lowest number of births in over 4 decades. The birth rate didn't just dip. It collapsed by more than 4% in a single 2-year window. For a business model that requires a fresh batch of 5-year-olds every single September, this is not a statistical anomaly. It is an existential crisis. The raw material required to keep the machine running is quite literally disappearing. The financial math of this cliff is ruthlessly unforgiving. If a school misses its kindergarten enrollment target by just 15 students, it doesn't just lose the tuition for that year. It loses that revenue for the next 9 consecutive years as that missing cohort moves through the grades. But the $20 million mortgage on the building doesn't shrink. The 6-figure insurance premium doesn't vanish. You are suddenly forced to operate a massive, fixed-cost infrastructure with a steadily shrinking subscriber base. This is why the industry is currently experiencing a quiet, frantic consolidation. You cannot marketing spend your way out of a demographic collapse. When the pool of children dries up, schools in the same geographic radius begin cannibalizing each other, slashing tuition and bleeding cash in a desperate fight for survival, until only one entity is left standing to absorb the corpses. The biggest risk isn't that the school fails academically. It is that the market itself simply ceases to exist. For centuries, the economic value of a school was rooted in the monopoly it held on knowledge. That monopoly is now collapsing. Recent studies from major universities have shown that personalized AI tutors, systems that adapt instantly to a student's exact learning pace, can outperform human tutors in standardized test scores. When a parent can download an algorithm that provides a fundamentally better math education than a $30,000 a year human, the traditional model faces a contradiction it cannot ignore. The core product is being relentlessly commoditized. Yet, the physical campus is not going to die. Instead, its fundamental purpose is mutating. As information becomes virtually free, parents are no longer paying $25,000 for algebra. They are paying for the physical containment, the socialization, and the supervised curation of their child's peer group. The school is quietly pivoting from an educational institution into a highly regulated, premium childcare network for the affluent, where the human teachers are essentially behavioral managers rather than exclusive purveyors of knowledge. This shift is already triggering a radical decentralization of the market. In the last 3 years, the number of licensed microschools, hyperlocal, home-based collectives with 15 students and a single facilitator, has surged by over 300%. These decentralized networks cost a fraction of a traditional campus to run, completely bypassing the crippling mortgage and maintenance expenses, while still charging parents thousands in annual tuition. They are leveraging the exact same digital curriculum, but entirely stripping away the multi-million-dollar real estate burden. To survive this decentralization, the massive legacy campuses are being forced to abandon the illusion of being well-rounded. The future of the profitable private school is hyperspecialization. If you are going to force parents to pay for a massive building, that building must offer something a living room cannot. We are seeing the rapid rise of campuses entirely dedicated to competitive esports, elite Olympic-level athletic pipelines, or highly specific neurodivergent therapies. The generic private school is a dying breed. The survivors are becoming highly targeted, luxury service providers.